What's going on, gamers? We got an interesting video here by Digital Foundry to talk about. And it's something that we obviously want because there's going to be a lot of headlines, definitely when it comes to Marathon coming out, and it's pretty much out. So I can't wait to see those PSSR 2 comparisons. But in this video, DF Clips, which is their alternate page for clips, is going to be giving people an I guess you could say intel or inside peek into what games they will be testing with PSSR 2. I want them to test as many games as possible. I can't wait to see comparisons from other channels. You know, we'll be getting that up here. Seems to be a big topic. And thank you all for that support. So Digital Foundry here is definitely going to be sharing some information with us. Let's get into this and see what games they're going to be testing for PSSR 2 so we can get some reactions going to that and get that going out there. We want to see how good this is in a lot of different ways, right? Not just Resident Evil, but how far is this really going to go? We've seen what's going to be happening with Crimson Desert already, and then Marathon should be up soon, so let's go.
Okay, our first question comes from having an AI neurism. What are the games you're most looking forward to testing with the new PSSR? The bad ones are an obvious choice, but what about the games that already look good and could now look/perform even better? Bonus question, based on how FSR4 presents, could the new PSSR prove superior to the solution Gorilla came up with for Horizon on Pro? Well, that's an interesting question, isn't it, Oliver? Because obviously there are some pretty good implementations of PSSR in its initial incarnation, and typically it's games that already sort of present with a higher resolution. So yeah, I think Stellar Blade came up as one. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth will be an interesting one because I'm not sure whether we're actually seeing the full benefits of PSSR or simply because the 1080p mode, the performance mode rather, on the base PS5 was so bad. So I'm kind of curious about that one. What do you make of the question?
That's a good question, and they were saying bad because the games that had PSSR issues. I know you're going to be covering that so we could see where that picked up off of. Not just from a patch perspective, because that may not be available that day, but from a backwards compatibility day one, because you could just toggle it on and see if it just automatically takes care of stuff for you real quick. So to move this out the way, we'll be talking off the camera a bit, but of course we're going to be here. But that's the thing that interests me, guys, is that what is going to be the difference between the backwards compatibility PSSR2 toggle and if a developer decides to implement PSSR2 patches on top of that to see if there's a difference? Because you won't be able to obviously see that with games that are going to be coming out that are new, because there won't be a before and after. But with older games, it is going to be interesting. And Final Fantasy is going to be one of them, along with a couple other games which we know have problems, like Alan Wake 2, Dragon's Dogma, and a lot of other games that had shimmers. So yeah, that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, in terms of games that are pretty good with PSSR that I'd like to see improved, obviously, I mean, the one that comes top of mind for me is Assassin's Creed Shadows. Now, that was a PSSR mode that had a little bit of compromise in it because it did exhibit significantly decreased performance on the PlayStation 5 Pro, so I'd be curious to see if that situation has changed at all. Battlefield 6 also had a very handsome PSSR mode.
Yep.
And as did Final Fantasy VII Rebirth in its versatility mode. I think that's probably top of mind in terms of games that are pretty good with PSSR that could even be even better with PSSR 2. In terms of games that I'm really looking forward to testing, I mean, there's some, I got a lot. I got a lot here.
Yeah.
Silent Hill F.
Right.
That's top of mind. Silent Hill 2, also significant in its fidelity mode because it still uses PSSR. Silent Hill F is probably the most compromised title with PSSR at the moment, I would think, that at least that I'm aware of, that I've covered, that has horrible noise with its ray tracing. I hope that would be cleaned up. I'd also think of a couple other titles. Black Ops 6 had that problem with speckling, if you remember that. The problem with noise and speckling. Dragon's Dogma 2 had that awful RTGI lag in it that was quite awful. God of War Ragnarok could be interesting because that's a title that, we can test the frame times. We can work out the frame times using that title in its unlocked modes. High on Life 2 was not the greatest with PSSR. Again, noise issues. I'd hope to see that improved. Hogwarts Legacy was a little bit blurry with PSSR. Star Wars Jedi Survivor had some issues with PSSR. Still not great. Could be improved still further. And then there are the Outlaws and Avatar titles that had PSSR toggles. Again, somewhat problematic. Could be improved considerably from there. I'd hope to see all those titles. And then in terms of the FSR4 question, could the new PSSR prove superior to Pico, the progressive image compositor from Gorilla? I think that, FSR4 and PSSR are probably much more general solutions than Pico. I think even we've seen with Pico that potentially the implementation in Death Stranding 2 is like a little bit worse potentially than in the Horizon titles. So I think, having an upscaler that works well for all kinds of game content and all kinds of game engines is like way more of a challenge than implementing something like Pico. So I suspect that PSSR would be preferable. And I even think just in terms of the raw quality, like Pico was operating from very high internal resolutions. When you look at Horizon Forbidden West, getting like a 1440p render to look like a clean 4K render is something that I'm sure PSSR 2 would be more than capable of.
Interesting. What do you make of that Pico question there, John?
So it's interesting what they were just talking about. That's a lot of games already right there. So pretty much any games that you saw have problems that we covered before and that a lot of people were worried about. And that's why PSSR 2 was giving people, not PSSR 2, PSSR 1 was giving people worries when the Pro came out because they were feeling like the upgrade wasn't worth it. It's definitely going to be some of the first things they touch down here. And we see there's definitely a quite handful of games to do that, and plus there's going to be a lot of new games to constantly coming out consistently that are going to be compared. So Digital Foundry is definitely going to be doing a lot of comparisons and in-depth analysis on these games, and I can't wait to see it. And then I can't wait to go to L's page too, because I know he's going to have a lot of comparisons along with a lot of other people. You guys know there's going to be a lot of hot topics and debates about that. Definitely seeing the difference between Xbox Series X and base PS5 with the PS5 Pro and where that's going to stand at now with these other titles. It is definitely going to be very interesting. I can't wait to see what cleanups are going to be happening just straight up with the backwards compatibility with certain games like, Star Wars, obviously, COD, obviously, Battlefield. I want to see what's going to be going on with Ghost of Yotei. Can they take that to the next level? Will Horizon look even better too? Even maybe Last of Us 2. Definitely when you see how good these games are already, it's going to be taken even farther. But first and foremost, I think we're going to be getting Marathon before that because that's out, and look out for that eventually. We know DF's going to have their video up for that, and so were other people. So yeah, let's continue and see what he has to say now.
So that's a tricky one because obviously I would say no PSSR implementation has matched what Horizon Forbidden West offered with Pico, right? I think that's fair to say.
And Ghost of Yotei.
But then Death Stranding 2 using Pico is perhaps less convincing. So it goes to show that it, similar to PSSR itself, is variable in terms of the end results. I'd be curious to know more about what Guerrilla specifically is doing that has allowed Horizon Forbidden West to look as good as it does, because it still is very much like probably the best image quality I think I've ever seen on a console game.
Right.
I don't know if you guys agree, but it's like, it's ridiculous. It's like, how is it this good? But nothing else has come close to matching it. But if they could find a way to get that to work elsewhere, that would be nice. But then again, we don't know the cost of it. We don't know the pros and cons. Like, what are the limitations? Like, it was specifically crafted by Guerrilla, for their engine, for that game, I would say, right? So PSSR has to cover a much broader number of titles. And as we've seen with PSSR, sometimes it breaks, sometimes it looks amazing, even in its first iteration. So that's always going to be the question with any of these new technologies.
Yeah, it's interesting because we're not going to get any answers, any sort of definite.
You guys remember it was the noise that you saw on the pixels, that some games had to actually turn it off, use TSR or use FSR or use something else as an alternative, because it was kind of creating those image noises that was disturbing. And then some people were like, I wish I could have had a toggle. Even Gran Turismo got hit with that. So there is a lot of games that are going to need to be revealed with PSSR 2. And if that ices the cake where it's like all these games, it's gone, and they all improve automatically with the straight backwards compatibility, and you're getting more performance, that is going to be massive for PlayStation 5 Pro, and it's going to raise the value up even more. We've already seen what happened with a native patch from Capcom, because we know Capcom is talented. We've already got inside intel about Crimson Desert saying it may be getting almost native 4K, pretty much 60 frames per second with ray tracing now, because that's how good the image is. And then I think Marathon is going to run very well with it as well. The big question that we have now is people who are owning the games that they have now am I going to be getting these straight up improvements by just hitting the toggle on, and I do not have to pay for anything, and I don't have to wait on a patch? Is just automatically making all these games available, because some people may have been waiting on that and they may have been disappointed. I think that that's definitely something I can't wait to see, and I think it's going to be one of the first things DF does go on, because it's easy for them to grab that footage and compare it to the new stuff. And I think a lot of people can't wait to see that, for sure.
answers with Horizon because that game is unlikely to be retrofitted with the new PSSR, because why would it be? It looks perfectly fine as it is already.
True.
So we're probably going to need to looking at the PC version of Death Stranding 2 to actually compare all of the upscalers with Pico to see how it presents. But as you say, implementations, the quality of them varies on a game-by-game basis. So how it's actually all going to pan out, we just don't know. But maybe we'll get some indication of how it all presents on the PC version of Death Stranding 2.
Yeah, good video as usual by Digital Foundry for their clips. Yeah, I mean, seeing it now compared to PC versions that can already almost been maxed out by the PlayStation because of the way they developed it around the console is definitely going to be interesting. I want you guys to let me know what you think about it. What games do you want to see be dived into that you were annoyed, or what new games do you want to see around the corner? In general, this is an exciting topic. It's pretty huge. I've been enjoying covering it big time, and I'm going to continue covering it because I can't wait to see the improvements myself. Definitely when it comes to a performance standpoint, not necessarily quality, but hey, we want that too because you could end up getting performance benefits on quality mode compared to before. As I was telling people before, when you think about what you were getting in performance mode, you might get that with quality type visuals now with PSSR 2. And that makes it very exciting. With performance mode, you might be able to break out of the 60 and get closer to the 100 plus 120 range, as we saw with games like Resident Evil, but they had to take off ray tracing, obviously. So yeah, I mean, that's what makes it exciting. Let me know what you guys think. Once again, peace out. Keep gaming no matter what platform you're on. Later, y'all.